Good morning. One of these things is not like the other. Do you remember that skit from Sesame Street? All right, shout it out. Let's go. Yes, I see some of you, right? There was this group of things, and one of them didn't fit, and there was this catchy song. One of these things is not like the other. I mean, you remember this? One of these things just doesn't belong, right? And before the song ended, it was a lot better than I just sang it. You had to choose the one that didn't belong, like this. There's the sunglasses, and then there's sunglasses, and there's sunglasses, and then there's this crazy cap. You know, it turns out we learn to compare things, including ourselves, really early. Other times, the Sesame Street skit, they had shoes, and then there was a boot. Then there was everyone wearing winter clothes, and then one person was wearing summer clothes. One of these things is not like the other. We're in our very last week of this series, Coming Home, where we've been looking at the parable of the prodigal, and it's been really easy to compare, hasn't it? There's the good son, and then there's the bad son. The bad son wastes his father's money. He lives his life recklessly. And it's very easy to say, as you go into this story, that these two are not at all like each other. But then last week we looked at the older brother. And the older brother has his own heart issues. He is just as reckless in his treatment of his father and his brother. His outside looked really good, but his inside was rotten. Two sons. Are they different? Who's the prodigal? But there's one more person in this parable. And if we play one of these things is not like the other, and then we add you, it will look something like this. It's pretty easy to ask the question, which one doesn't belong? We can say younger brother, prodigal. We can say older brother, prodigal. We can say you, prodigal. We can say me, prodigal. You know, the word prodigal has come to mean lost because of this parable, but the actual definition of prodigal is this: spending money or resources freely and recklessly, wastefully extravagant. So let's apply that definition. The bad son wasted his father's inheritance. The good son wasted his father's blessing. Both were wasting what the father gave. Both were reckless with their father's love. And I suspect if you put yourself into this parable and you apply that definition, you'd find yourself. You've wasted what God has for you. His resources, His blessings. You're lost. And your lostness might be on the outside where everybody can see it, like the younger brother, but it might be on the inside where no one can see it except you and God, like the older brother. One of these things is not like the other. The one that doesn't belong is the father. But he may be best named prodigal. Here's what I mean. The very foundation of our Christian faith is that God so loved the world that he sent his son Jesus into the world, and Jesus, fully human and fully God, he didn't come just to prove that God exists. He came so he could show us who God is. And he would do that by the way he lived his life, but he would also do it by the way he gave his life. See, Jesus came so that we could know the love of the Father. So we would know that it is the Father that is the prodigal. because the Father is extravagant. He is reckless. He is abandoned in his love for you. Now, a few years ago, there was a controversy that went out in contemporary Christian music when this song came out. It was called Reckless God. People were very angry about God being called reckless. Here's what the song said. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. People were really unhappy about calling God reckless. But the writer of the song went on to explain what he meant. Oh, God's love, chases me down. It fights till I'm found. It leaves the 99. Remember the story of the lost sheep. And I couldn't earn it. I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Are you uncomfortable with saying that God's love for you is reckless? Jesus told this parable so you'd get that. Because we don't deserve his love. And he gives it anyway. He comes after us no matter how far we get away from him. And as I've said over and over again as we've looked at this parable, in this parable, it sums up the gospel because Jesus is showing us the very heart of God. He's extravagant. And he loves both of his sons with an extravagant love. Jesus is showing us the heart of God. Now already as we've been looking at this parable, we've looked at who Jesus taught this parable to. Remember, he taught it to the Pharisees. They were listening. And when they were honest, they could look in the mirror and they could see that they were the older brother. Then Jesus was also teaching, it says, to the tax collectors and the sinners. And when they looked in the mirror, they knew that they were the younger brother. They knew that. So we've explored the people. We've looked at the younger brother. We've looked at the older brother. But we have one character left, the most important character in the parable, the father. So I want you to do me a favor. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, but I want you to do it anyway. As I read this parable, I want you to close your eyes. And rather than looking at the scripture, I want you just to listen. And I want you to hear the heartbeat of the Father. Hear this parable. But while the younger brother was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his slaves, quickly bring out a robe, the best one. Put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet and get the fatted calf and kill it. And let's eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. Now his elder son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. He called one of the slaves and asked what was going on. The slave replied, your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf because he has got him back safe and sound. Then he became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, listen, for all these years I've been working like a slave for you. I've never disobeyed your command, yet you have never given me even a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came back, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him. Then the father said to him, Son, you're always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found. You know, Jesus isn't very subtle when he shares this story, is he? Everyone who hears it knows where they fit in the story, and everyone knows who the Father is in the story. God is the Father with his two sons, and Jesus is telling us what God is like. And the way the story unfolds is such a surprise to his Middle Eastern listeners because this father was a father they couldn't have even imagined. This father said yes to the younger brother's request for the inheritance, which was incredibly out of line. This father hiked up his robe and he ran after his rebellious son. This father took the insult of the older son, and this father recklessly invited both of his sons to come home in spite of what they had done to the father. He's not like any Middle Eastern father, and he might not be anything like your father. See, some fathers are bad. Yours might have been. But hear this, it's so important. This father is not some version of your dad, no matter how good or how bad. This father is not some version of your dad on steroids. Please don't let that trip you up. See, God is not called Father because he is like your earthly father. To transfer your feelings of your earthly father and put those on God the Father, it's absolutely backwards. See, it's the other way around. All human fathers are supposed to reflect the love and the faithfulness of our Heavenly Father. See, God is all Father. Michael Reeves wrote this incredible book. It's called Delighting in the Trinity. And here's what he says about the Father. He says, it's not that God is a father as a day job, only to kick back in the evenings as plain old God. It's not that he has a nice blob of fatherly icing on top. He is Father all the way down. This is the core of God. The Father loves his children fully and recklessly. Love is not something the Father has or one of his many moods. Rather, he is love. He cannot not love. If he did not love, he would not be the Father. See, Jesus tells this parable because he wants you to know the Father, this Father. I'll never forget dropping our son off at Wake Forest for his freshman year of college. I mean, some of you understand how hard that is, and others of you are already dreading it, even though your kid just graduated from kindergarten. And I say, be prepared. It is rough. It had been such an exciting orientation. John was excited. We were excited. But then it came time to say goodbye. John hugged his mom first, and he hugged me last. But after that, I was out. I had to walk away because I was a mess. But Mark did it a bit different. I pulled my camera out because I wanted to get one last picture of John going off to his freshman year at Wake. And instead, I caught this picture, and I'm so glad I have it. There's Mark just watching. Mark stood there, and he watched. He watched John walk, and then he watched John run, until finally John was out of sight. See, that's what the Father does. I'll never forget it. See, the Father is always looking for you. He's always loving you. Ever since the Son left, it was always the same. The father has his eyes wide open. He watches his son leave all the way out of town. And every day since, he watches. The father isn't wondering if he'll get his money back. And he's not wondering if he will be able to buy his property back that he had to sell. The father is simply wondering and hoping and praying that his son will come back. And yes, that's the same son who betrayed him. It's the same son who embarrassed him. It's the same son that when he asked for that inheritance, really wished his dad dead. It's the son who he knew would fail. But in all of it, the father's love hasn't changed. He watches every single day to see if his son will come down that road. See, the father wants to warn you about all the danger you will face. The father wants to convince you to stay home. He could have forced you to stay at home so you would never have gotten hurt. He wants to tell you not to post that on Snapchat. And he wants to help you choose friends that will bring you back home. But see, that's not the father. The father won't force himself on you, but he will be waiting for you. He'll let you go, but he'll be waiting on you. Hear this, no matter how far you've gone away from the Father, he is always looking, always longing, always loving. So you may say to me, God couldn't be God and receive me if he knew my story. There's no way God could love me. See, but if you say that, that's because you don't know this Father. He wants you to come home. Every week we've been introducing a painting, bringing this parable to life, and today I'm going to start with a confession. You can see that this painting, well, you're not seeing all of it. We'll show all of it to you up on the other screens, but I've had a few of you say, what are we going to do with all those paintings? They're so beautiful. Can't we put them up in the church? Well, this is a TV. I've been taking a poll. How many of you thought these were actual paintings? Raise your hand. All right, so this is good due to the amazing work of our creative team with Matt Linus in charge of that. Would y'all thank our team? They're amazing. So great painting on a TV screen. Love it, right? This is probably the most famous of all the paintings of this parable by Rembrandt, of course. And Henry Nouwen, who was a priest and an author, as he encountered this painting, he had a life-changing experience. For Nouwen, this masterpiece is all about the Father. You can see that red cape. It's like a tent. It's like wings to protect and to welcome and to give the son with his tattered clothes that you can see on the big screen and his dirty feet. It's all that's just to give the son rest. And then there are those hands. Nouwen was mesmerized by the hands of the Father. And if you look close, the Father's left hand on the Son's shoulder is very strong and muscular. That hand has a strong and a firm hold on his Son. But the other hand has a more gentle touch on the shoulder. It's tender and kind and comforting. Art critics have speculated that Rembrandt actually used his own hand as a model for the left hand, but that he used a woman's hand as the model for the right hand. What's Rembrandt trying to say? The Father is at the same time firm and tender in his love for his Son. He runs to the son when he sees him. He wraps his arms around the son. With his hands, he embraces him. Friends, those are the hands that are waiting for you. The hands that shaped you before you were born. The hands that hold on to you when you need protection. The hands that let you go when you rebel. But the hands that will always welcome you back and embrace you. See, the Father will always hold on to you. Jesus tells us that the Father stops the Son's explanation and he just holds him. And then he gives him a robe and a ring and starts preparing a party. See, God's love has this unbelievable, indescribable grip. It's all about the grip. This past week, Mark and I watched the first episode of the new season of American Ninja Warriors. Now, if you don't know that show, it's not black robes and ninja stars and nunchucks. It's a bunch of amazing athletes, and they compete to get through some very crazy and challenging obstacles. This ninja made it through. But if you look close, do you see how he is holding on for life? If you watch the show, almost all the obstacles require a ridiculous amount of grip strength. Ninjas make it through when they have a good grip. Ninjas fail when they don't have a good grip. See, it's all about the grip. God's love for you is about that grip. See, he runs to you. He embraces you, and he doesn't let you go. That's what the Father does. No matter what, he holds on. And when you truly grasp his grip, you want him to take hold of every part of your life. See, you repent. You want him to be the center of your life because you can trust this Father with every single detail of your life. Where you're going to go to college, who you're going to marry, when you're going to retire, all your failures, your disappointments, all your future, everything. The Father, you can trust him with it. One more thing Jesus wants you to know. No matter how far away you get from the Father, when you're all alone, and maybe you've had these moments, when you're all alone and you don't know what to do, when you've made decisions that you can't take back, when you disappoint everybody, including yourself, when you think there is no way home, the Father's always running to you. See, he's running to you. No distance is too far for God to get to you. It doesn't matter if you're like the younger son and you're far away from God, or if you're stubbornly close like the older son. The Father literally, and I love that we get these images from Jesus, the Father hikes up his robe and he runs to the Son. And he leaves the party and all his guests to come out to the insults of the older son. See, the Father runs to meet you right where you are. He runs to you. I followed the career of Kayla Montgomery once I learned her story. Maybe you know it. Kayla had always been a really good athlete all the way through school. And when she got to middle school, she was a standout. And her favorite sport was soccer. And she was good at soccer. She was D1 good at soccer. But then in middle school, she fell. She had an injury. And that injury led to an incredibly difficult diagnosis, very serious. She had an aggressive form of MS. And with the MS, she knew that it wouldn't be long that she couldn't play soccer anymore, but Kayla wasn't done with sports. So she took up running. With the help of her medication, she could still run, and she started working on long-distance running. Her MS symptoms didn't let up, but neither did Kayla. She just got better and better. But the MS didn't make it easy. See, every time she ran, she would lose all the feeling in her legs. So at the end of the race, when she was going fast, Kayla couldn't stop herself. If you watch her run, go home and Google her on YouTube. When you watch her run, it's overwhelming. Not because of what she is overcoming. Not because she usually wins her races. It's overwhelming because of what happens at the end of her race. At the end of the race, Kayla's done all she can. She's given all she can. She has her mind on winning, but she also has this fear. See, she has to fully count on her coach at the end of the race. She literally runs into his arms. She ran this way through middle school and through high school and through her D1 career at Lipscomb University. She could run no matter how hard it got, no matter how fast she was, because she could count on her coach. She knew he was going to catch her. See, the Son ran all the way to the Father with his deepest fears and, of course, his greatest hopes. It had been bad. As he ran, he had to wonder, would his Father be there to meet him? Would his Father even see him? He had to wonder if he would ever get to go into his Father's house again. The Son ran to the Father, but the amazing news is that as soon as the Father saw him, the Father ran to the Son. And that allowed the Son to fall into the arms of his good, faithful Father. You know, it wasn't enough for Jesus to share this really good story about a father's love. It wasn't enough to share this touching story about a dad and a son being reconciled. No, Jesus told this story because he knew he was going to live this story. See, he lived out the love of the Father when he ran to you. And Jesus didn't just run down a road. He ran all the way from heaven and all the way to the earth. He ran from his perfect, sinless life to your broken life. Jesus ran all the way to the cross for you so that you would know the love of the Father. One of these things is not like the other. The older brother, he's a prodigal. The younger brother, he's a prodigal. You're a prodigal. I'm a prodigal. We're lost. But the Father, he's different. And he is the real prodigal. See, Jesus told this story to all who would listen. And he told it so you would hear the invitation again to come home. Father, you know all things. You know what's deepest in our heart. You know what we long for. You know what we're worried about. You know if we don't believe in you at all. You know if we can't believe that you could possibly love us. You know if we're the younger brother far from you. And you know if we're the older brother close but far. Once again, Father, by your Spirit, would you, in this room, would you do your work? Because you are the Father, you are meeting people where they are. You have your arms wide open. Help us to see you running to us, no matter how far we've gotten from you. Help us to recover our joy in you. If we've been close to you, come out to us. By your grace, Father, help us to hear your invitation lived out by your Son, Jesus, to come home, to be in your presence, to know you, to have you at the center of our lives, to come home. And we pray it, Father, in the name of your Son, Jesus.